seemed like a typical mom, but
She was running a massage parlor.
She said she did it for the children.
She did it for the drugs.
an ex-madam
I feel for my mom to have to live with her past.
But she doesn't live with it. To her, it was no big deal. So I traded in human flesh.
with no regrets.
You told the producers that you felt so much shame. I think you say that because you know that's what you're supposed to say. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. Well, you know the old saying, we can choose our friends, but we can't choose our parents. So when our parents make really terrible decisions, what do? How do we forgive them and rise above our raisin? Well, today's story has a really dark side to it, but at its core, it's about a very dysfunctional mother-daughter relationship. Now, you may not relate to all of the details, but you will hopefully relate to the message, the challenge of how to make your family functional, how to make your family better. That's why I'm doing this story. Now, growing up, Emily says, from the outside, her family looked normal. But they were anything but, because her mother, Linda, was living a shocking double life.
We grew up in the suburbs. I went to a private school. My mom had me in soccer and dance class. We were so normal that my mom was a basketball coach and she drove a minivan. I didn't know at the time my mom was running a massage parlor. She was a madam.
I did live a double life.
When I was a kid, I thought my parents owned a construction company.
My business was never around, never brought home. That was separate and secretive. But then the police would get warrants and start searching my house.
We would randomly go to a hotel 3 or 4 times a year. And then we would come home. The house had been destroyed. Things were just flipped over and there was stuff everywhere. Our parents never told us why that had happened. It was just normal to clean it up. Later I had learned that it was from the police who had done a raid on the house. I remember going to my 15th birthday party and my mom showed up. It looked like she had been in a brawl. Her tooth was kind of hanging, her face was black and blue. My mom was putting on our birthday parties during the day and then she was getting raided and beat up at night.
The police set up a sting and then I was arrested.
By the time I was 17, the businesses had been closed down and we went into one of her buildings and mattresses were flipped over and there was lingerie thrown everywhere, and at that point I knew that there was sex happening in that building. Once my mom's massage parlors had been closed down, she started to really fall apart.
Well, after 20 years of ducking and weaving and escaping trouble with the law, Linda's past caught up with her. And when she fell hard. Emily says she was left to pick up the pieces.
My mom didn't go to jail for prostitution, but she did get into drugs.
When I lost everything, the business, my family, I just couldn't take it anymore.
She was living with me at the time. I was trying to keep her sober.
All the rest of my family members wouldn't have anything to do with me, and Emily was the only one that was there.
I was definitely the mother, and she was like my daughter. One time, my mother got into a physical altercation with somebody, and I had to put up my car to take out a loan in order to pay her lawyer's fees. I paid our cell phones, our utilities. I paid for our cars, our car insurance, groceries.
When I was living with Emily, I would call her 10 times a day. I had no one else, and I didn't want to be alone.
My mom would show up at my work 4 to 5 times a week, unannounced.
And you might have worked 10 hours, but I do come over there.
It got so bad that a supervisor had to call my boss, who then had to tell me she needed to leave. I got worried for my job.
Emily is my best friend.
It was difficult for me to tell her to leave because I felt guilty.
She's all I have.
I'm at a point in my life where I don't have anything else to give, but yet I still never say no to her.
Well, Emily, it's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You say your mother didn't go to jail, but she just self-medicated, started doing drugs, kept doing drugs. Do you think she gets the impact of what she's done?
You know, there's little glimpses where I feel like she sees it, but then it all comes crashing down, especially if I ever say no to her.
Okay. So you're being held emotional hostage. Mm-hmm. How does she make you pay?
I mean, she affects me just in her everyday emotion. So in those circumstances, it might be, she is diagnosed bipolar. So it might be that she has a total freak out and starts calling me every name in the book, blows up my phone and not in a good way. Tells me I'm a horrible person, I'm a horrible daughter. So I either have to endure that, or in my mind, I sit there and think, well, what's going to happen if I don't do it for her? And that usually just...
Well, you teach people how to treat you. So what she's taught you is if you tell me no, I'm going to make your life miserable.
Yes, and I think she lived her whole life that way. I think in her businesses, she was very, do what I say, and if you don't, it was a pretty hard message.
If people weren't tuned in from the very top, they might think we're talking about an out-of-control teenager here.
Yes.
I've got to fill out the applications for them. If you tell them no, they pout and throw tantrums and give me hell. It's all. They would think that we're talking about a rebellious teenager that is demanding and entitled.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about a 70-year-old woman.
We are.
We're talking about your mother. Mm-hmm. And it's your mother who created all this, set all of this up, but she said she did it for you. She said she did it for the children. This was so that she could give you everything. Mm-hmm. Did you believe that?
No. I understand addiction. I understand mental illness pretty well. And I think when she says that, it helps her feel better about what she's done. But I know that, you know, she did it for the drugs. She did it for the fast cash. She did it for the lifestyle.
Yeah, because she was spending anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000 a month on drugs. Mm-hmm. She had $200-300 a day habit.
She did.
On drugs, plus she was rolling high. She, you know, vacations and this, that, and the other. She said she did all this for you, but the fact is, most of that money went to her.
It's probably right.
Why do you think you can't tell your mother the truth about how you feel, that you resent her dependency on you?
I don't want her to feel like she doesn't have anyone. She's my mom. And I feel like you have to be there.
Do you think you're helping her?
I mean, of course, I think I'm helping her along.
But you're not under the illusion that you're actually helping her become better adjusted, more independent.
No.
You're just feeding into her dependency.
Right. Helping
And
her
it's
along.
taking a toll on you.
Mm-hmm. I like to hide my emotions.
Aren't I kind of the last guy to talk to if you want to do that?
I thought it was a good time to make some changes.
Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Emily's mother, Linda, says everything she did was for her children. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up. I think you have to own your position in life. And I think Emily needs to own hers. I'm going to also tell you that I think this is all about Emily. I don't think it's much about Linda. Linda did what she did. She is who she is. She may change, she may not. I don't know about that. But what I do know is that Emily has her whole life stretched out ahead of her. And I'm real interested in what Emily's going to do to have a functional life. So we're going to talk about all that next when we meet Linda.
I went out of my way to make sure Emily didn't know what I did for a living. After the girls were fed, homework, put to bed, I would jump in my minivan and then head down to the massage parlors. It took me a few hours to get from mother mode to pimp mode.
And later,
I feel for my mom to have to live with all of that.
but she doesn't. To her, it was no big deal. So I was into human trafficking.
My life has been dedicated to taking care of my mother. I'm in a constant state of stress and anxiety with her. I try not to show my emotions to my mother because I don't want her to feel bad or feel like she has nowhere to go. My mom doesn't know what a burden she can be on my life.
Well, Emily says her childhood was full of dysfunction. Now, what does she mean by that? Well, her mother, Linda, lived a double life. By day, Mom was, well, a suburban housewife, driving her two daughters to ballet in her gray minivan, running errands, having birthday parties, doing all the things suburban moms do. But unbeknownst to Emily and the neighborhood, Linda was secretly a drug-addicted madam who oversaw two spas. You can call them spas. They were houses of ill repute that serviced rich and powerful men with illicit sex.
Everything looked normal on the outside, just like the average American family.
We were constantly outside playing.
I went out of my way to make sure Emily didn't know what I did for a living. After the girls were fed, homework, and put to bed, I would jump in my minivan, do a couple lines of coke, and then head down to the massage parlors. It took me a few hours to get from mother mode to pimp mode. It was just so normal. I did it for so long that it just came natural. This is where I had my first massage parlor. 3 years after I bought my first massage parlor, I bought a second one. We were open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I did the scheduling, I hired the girls, and did the advertising. A lot of the women would come from Las Vegas to work for me. Then I started getting the doctors, the lawyers, the professional sports players. Between the two massage parlors, we would bring in $30,000 a month. With that money, I could do anything I wanted. First class, all the way. We went to Florida, we went to Cancun, and we lived very well. I was a successful madame for 20 years, but then there was a large sting operation. I was arrested for promotion of prostitution and racketeering. Once I was arrested, my marriage was over. When I got out of jail, I was totally dependent on Emily.
Okay, Linda, good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
So you did lead a double life, right?
I did. I did.
And you guys decided to write a memoir about this, right?
Yes.
And you thought that would be a good idea.
At the time, yeah.
Was that a good idea?
Having to relive a lot of that hasn't been, I think, great for my mom.
Yeah, like you didn't know about the prostitution, for example.
Yes, that was something new that I learned.
Yeah. And I was listening to your tape pieces. You still normalize this, trivialize this in your mind like it was just an enterprise. It was a business. It was just
I do.
something you did like a bake sale,
I do.
except you were selling something besides baked goods.
Sure.
So you still don't get the big deal about it, why it's a problem with her perceptually, right?
I don't think I do. I don't. I don't think I truly do.
Do you get that? To her, it's still like, what? The only problem with this is I got caught. You told the producers that you felt so much shame. I don't get that. I don't see that. I don't feel that. I think you say that because you know that's what you're supposed to say. She's still not acknowledging what impact this had and has on you. Do you get that?
Yeah, I do.
What do you think of that? How do you square that up?
Well, I mean, I feel like I've kind of grown up to be somewhat numb to it, and I don't think in depth the details of what all that really is. So writing this book has brought more of those details to light, so I can see a little bit more of the dysfunction. I feel for my mom to have to live with all of that thought process, all of the things in her past that she...
Well, but she doesn't live with it. That's my point. To her, it's like, why are you people responding, reacting to this? It was no big deal. So I was into human trafficking. I traded in human flesh. What's the big deal?
I think she acts like she doesn't. But I think deep down, that's why she struggles to live with it.
Well, you told the producers that you felt so much shame. I don't get that. I don't see that. I don't feel that. I think you say that because you know that's what you're supposed to say.
No, I hide it very well. I'm good at hiding my feelings. And
What are you ashamed of?
of my past and what I did.
What about it?
Being a madame.
What was wrong with it?
At the time, I was there to get the money for the drugs.
What was wrong with it? Why was it wrong?
Collecting money from women's prostitution.
Why was that wrong?
Because I'm living off of some women's misery.
There was an interesting bite in your tape piece that I thought jumped out to me real clearly. I'd like to play that again.
It was just so normal. I did it for so long that it just came natural. What came normal?
It was just so normal.
It was.
Like,
After a
you
while.
said, I was with lawyers and doctors and businessmen and athletes. It was like, you're still bragging about it.
Not bragging. At the time when I was in it, that's what I meant.
No, we shot this with you a few days ago.
I know. But I mean, feeling at the time when I was there, owning and operating, it felt normal.
You did drugs in front of your children.
They caught me doing drugs, yes.
My dad had caught us playing, and we had rolled up dollar bills, and he asked us what we were doing, and we said we were taking our medicine.
When we come back, Emily told our producers her mother is draining her emotionally and financially, but she's just afraid to tell her the truth. We'll talk about that when we come back.
At times, the kids saw me doing drugs.
When I was 5, my father had walked into my sister and I playing. We had a rolled up dollar bill, and we said we were taking our medicine. That was my mom's excuse. When she was doing cocaine, she would tell us that she was taking her medicine.
I have sweatshirts with my daughter's faces on them when I was coach of their basketball. I used to go into the massage parlors with that on. I was the boss that would yell at the hookers with the pictures of my daughters on my sweatshirt.
Well, for years, Emily thought her mother owned a construction company, and that's how they afforded the nice house in the suburbs, family vacations, fancy cars, a boat. Emily had no idea her mother was living a double life as a madam for 20 years. Now, Linda claims she did it all for her family.
When I was sober, I was a good mom. I was a great mom.
My mom regularly used drugs when I was a child.
In the beginning, I tried not to do drugs at home, but it started to get so out of control. At times, the kids saw me doing drugs.
When I was 5, my father had walked into my sister and I playing. We had a rolled up dollar bill, and he asked us what we were doing with it, and we said we were taking our medicine. That was my mom's excuse. When she was doing cocaine, she would tell us that she was taking her medicine.
I was doing between $200 and $300 of cocaine a day. About a third of my income was going towards drugs.
I do think she was a good mom. Beyond the drug use, we had a great life at times. We were in basketball, soccer, dance. We were always busy.
I wasn't there emotionally for them, so I compensated by buying them things. I would take them on vacation, a lot of trips, a lot of toys.
In the past, my mom said that the reason she was running these whorehouses was to support her children and give them a better life. But I think it was to support her drug habit. Now I resent her more for having to take care of her, not because of her past.
So you're saying you resent the dependency now more than you do the history?
Yes, my emotions are so driven by hers, and however she's feeling really is how I'll be feeling. I always take that on.
Why?
Because she's my mom.
Well, that's not an answer. I mean, because she's your mom doesn't mean that you have to graft her emotions onto you. You're an individual. That's your normal, but that's not a consensual normal. That's not what all parents and adult children do.
I just have never believed in not helping your family, not being around family.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. I'm questioning how you define help. Do you think what you're doing is helping your mother get healthier, more independent, more self-directed, better adjusted emotionally? Or do you think you're just making it easier for her to continue to be dependent on you and not face the reality that she needs to deal with?
I mean, I'm probably not doing the right things.
You work outside the home.
Yes.
And there was a time at which she showed up at your work almost daily.
I knew it was because she just needed that that connection, didn't want to be alone. And so she'd come and kind of hang out at the store.
You're excusing her behavior. You realize that, don't you? You're justifying it.
I understand it.
Why do you show up at her work?
I'm sorry. The way you presented that, it does sound awkward, doesn't it? Different.
Well, it must be funny because you're laughing.
It's not funny. It's just the way you said. I have to think about that. I'm sorry.
Let me in on the joke. I'm missing
The
it.
joke is, I'm looking inward. That's a question I've never asked myself. And
What?
why do I go to her work?
You never ask yourself, why
No.
am I going to my adult
No,
daughter's place of employment to the point that her supervisor comes to her and says, what the hell? Coming up, Emily says that her own relationships are strained because her mother will meet a good friend of hers who is concerned about this mother-daughter relationship. And she just kind of permeates every aspect of your life, right? I mean, wherever you are, she is into everything. We'll talk about it when we come back.
We look like a totally normal family. But I remember as a kid, my mom doing drug runs. My mom would pack up my sister and I into our minivan. I would always be in the back seat with my pillow and my blanket. She wouldn't leave the car. Someone would come up. We couldn't see what they were doing. But later on, we found out that she was getting her drugs.
Every day it was cocaine.
Mom would have a 5- and 7-year-old in the car to buy drugs, and we thought that was totally normal.
Well, Linda says her dark past caught up to her. Her illegal businesses were shut down by the city. She got divorced, lost all of her money, had an ugly drug habit to support. Linda says she fell hard and relied on her daughter Emily to pick her back up. Now Emily says she's feeling a lot of resentment towards her mother for clinging on to her in such a dependent way. I think I'm talking about this from a different point of view because to me it doesn't seem normal at all. I mean, to you guys, you've defined this and lived it day after day after day so that you've gotten used to it. But from the outside looking in, it looks very dysfunctional, very sick, very pathological. And I said, this is all about you because you're the one that has to make the choice. Now, Emily has a friend here, Lee. He says he's witnessed Emily's struggle with her mother, and so he's joining us from the audience. Is it just me?
No.
What do you see here?
It's crazy. It's every day. It's usually about 15 to 30 calls, texts. It's constant. Emily is, she's up when her and her mom are getting along and way down, and I'm going to block her and I'm not going to talk to her again. It's a daily occurrence.
Do you think not taking 15 to 30 calls a day from her, not allowing her to show up at your work, not tethering your emotions to hers, are failing to love her?
In a sense, I think it's how you show love.
You're paying the emotional extortion. She's saying, I'm sick and you need to be sick with me or you don't love me. That's the emotional extortion. That's the ransom she's demanding from you.
I don't know if she knows how much it does affect me physically or emotionally when she's feeling a certain way. I don't know if she understands how that makes me feel that same way.
It's not important that she understands it. It's important that you understand it. At the risk of being cliche here, you're not a victim, you're a volunteer. We've already established that this isn't helping your mother.
Right.
She needs to establish a healthier baseline. She needs to have other relationships. She needs to heal whatever wounds are inside her. And trust me, this is way above your pay grade.
I'm sure it is.
So what you're saying is my mother made some really bad decisions to become a drug addict, a prostitute, and a pimp. And so those bad decisions have left her emotionally crippled, so I'm going to jump in the pit with her. And that's not going to help her, it's just going to ruin me, but that's loving her. That's your rationale here.
Yeah.
Well, how's that working for you?
Well, clearly not well.
What do you tell her? What do you say to her? You're feeding this, right? This is what you want her to do. Misery loves company, so...
I don't feel that way, I don't see that when I'm around my daughter. Maybe I'm just so...
I put on a hard exterior. I don't like telling her.
So selfish in my needs that I don't see it.
Well, you see it. I'm pretty much calling it out now, right?
Yeah.
I don't want our relationship to be strained in any way, but I know I do have to back off with certain things.
So you don't really want to change this?
I do. I guess I think...
Do you want permission to change it?
I don't know, probably.
You have permission to change it.
And how?
You have permission to change it because it is not in her best interest to do what you're doing. I'm asking you to take control of your life and to have some boundaries. When we come back, Linda says she knows she was a better mother than her own mother. So I guess that's a win. She'll tell us what that means when we come back.
My mother can be very scary. When you tell her no, she can get very angry.
I ran upstairs screaming.
She will stomp her feet. She will throw things until you do what she wants. She'll threaten to call my boss, or she'll threaten to do something.
I'm going to kick those girls' asses if I find anything wrong.
There's really nothing that she couldn't or wouldn't do. And this is why they say felons can't have guns.
Now, you say you were a good mother, but you just weren't emotionally available. You provided for them.
I did,
but you just weren't emotionally available.
I admit that I wasn't.
Okay, well, you can't use those things in the same sentence logically. I was a good mother, I wasn't emotionally available. Those are not consistent
Materially,
concepts.
I was a good mother. I provided all the outside, but wasn't there for them emotionally, no.
But you understand that's inconsistent with saying you were a good mother.
Okay, all right.
Being emotionally unavailable to your children
Right.
is not consistent with being a good mother, because good mothers are emotionally available for their children. They're connected with their children. They're involved with their children. They don't just buy them stuff and say, here, go play. Right? Mm-hmm. What do you think she should do?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, Allison, This is Allison Mann. You helped write this memoir with these women. Do you think was there ever a moment of insight on Linda's part that she got the gravity of what impact she had had on her family?
There were a few. I've seen Linda feel a lot of guilt for how she mothered her children and the things that she did in her past. She has remorse. It's not all the time.
And did you ever see that translate into behavioral change?
No.
Okay, so it was just
It's
mental gymnastics. She just felt it but didn't act on it?
I think she feels it, and I think she doesn't know how to express it or act on it.
You have the right to independence without having to carry your mother's emotional burden. That doesn't mean you have to abandon her. Look, you made a lot of bad choices. It's not a life sentence. I would hope you would learn to have some genuine remorse for those things and recognize the impact it's had and give her some space and develop some independence. But because you made some bad choices doesn't mean that you forever are a bad person.
Right.
And look, you can love your mother. You can even forgive your mother. But you don't have to continue to be dragged down by her, to be sucked dry by her. Are you willing to set up boundaries?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you entitled to that?
Yeah.
I mean, really? Don't you think you deserve that?
Yeah, realistically, yeah.
Your enthusiasm is underwhelming. You think you deserve that? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you deserve that.
I do. Yes, I do. I know that. But it's, setting those and sticking to them, and I think it's something I can do.
This thing you have going here, you need to end this before it ends you. You seem to think that you're indebted to her in some way, like you endangered me, abused me, betrayed me, so I owe you in some way. I don't get that. If she calls you 15 to 30 times a day, you need to answer once. The other 14 to 29, you shouldn't even pick up. And if she does that, then you shouldn't answer at all the next day. Teach her how to treat you. If you abuse this privilege, then it will be taken away. It's just that simple. If she shows up at your job, you should have security remove her. Yeah, I know you just can't even imagine. You shouldn't be going to your grown daughter's job. What the hell? It's her job. Stay away from there. What do people say when she shows up at your job?
Well, I don't think anybody really wanted to say anything to me. It's probably more behind my back, so.
Well, I'm saying something to you. That's weird. You're a grown woman. You need to develop your own life, and I'll help you do that. We're in a pandemic right now, and I get that that's still going on, and I will arrange for both of you to have individual professional help, not as a couple, not as a mother-daughter relationship, individual help to work on these issues yourself, to help you set up boundaries, to help you say, okay, as a grown woman with this history, what can I do now and what do I need to do now to become independent and find some fulfillment and happiness and joy in my life? So when my daughter sees me coming, it's like, hey, it's good to see you, instead of, oh God, here she comes. You want to have a joyful relationship with your daughter. I don't want to cut off this relationship. I don't want to come between y'all. I just want it to be healthy. And I will set you both up with a therapist with Doctor on Demand, so you can do it as teletherapy, so you don't have to go sit in an office somewhere with other people that you might be afraid make you sick or something. You can do this on you have a computer?
No, not at this time.
Well, we'll get you a device.
Okay.
So you can do this. Okay. And will you do that?
I would, yeah. I think, yeah.
Okay. Will you do that? and talk about the issue here. And let's set this up where it's a healthy relationship where you can have some joy and some fun. I want to thank all of my guests today. And if you at home want to have your own Doctor on Demand, go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download the Doctor on Demand app. It's a good company. My son and I started this years ago, so I've got a lot of confidence in them. For more information about today's show, or if you'd like to be on the show, log on to drphil.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And speaking of Facebook, you need to check out my Facebook group called Dr. Phil Fanatics. That's PHAN. It's a private group for superfans where you'll get the latest Dr. Phil news first. And don't forget to subscribe to Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret. She's got great guests that share the secret to mastering an influential life, the secret to kind, so much more. Lots of information there. So stay safe, everybody. I encourage you to get vaccinated if you haven't been.